Good evening, Hamlin County. My name is Jeff Perry, and I'm so glad that you have joined us this evening for our first virtual community forum. This is our first attempt at a virtual forum, and so I am sure during this particular conversation, we will make a number of mistakes and errors. But we hope that you stay with us, and it is an attempt that we can provide our community with the most current information possible. We also wanted to do these forums so that it would enable community members to ask questions and we could answer those questions in a timely forum. In the past, our broadcasts have been rehearsed and we've had teleprompters and we've been able to research all the questions and provide in-depth responses to those questions. This, however, is a little bit different from some of those other forums that we've had. And so it'll take us a little while to get the hang of this and to make sure that we're doing this to the best of our ability. However, the most important thing is to provide information to our community, and that's the purpose of this particular forum. This evening we've had a number of questions that were submitted to the district for a response. Individuals have emailed Ms. Carlene Webb, and she will have those questions this evening, and she will be the one providing the questions to us, and then I'll provide the responses. Also, we want to make it clear that a lot of the questions that we had were very involved and they were very detailed and very long. We've condensed those questions down into a more concise question just for efficiency purpose. We also want everyone to understand that many questions involve the same topic, and we've combined some of those particular topics together just so that we can answer those questions more effectively and efficiently. So as we go through this evening, we hope that we can provide information to our community and that we hope that you can provide, or that we hope that this particular forum would be beneficial to everyone. And again, we hope that if it is necessary and we have good participation, we can do other community forums in the future, and this would be the way that we can provide information in a time where we cannot meet in person. Of course, I think all of us would rather meet in person, and that way we could have that interactive ability that individuals could ask questions, could clarify particular responses that we were to give. But for right now, this is the best that we can do, and we hope, again, that it does provide good information. So at this point, I would like to ask Ms. Webb to go ahead and provide our first question of the evening.
What is your benchmark for when a student or family member should be tested for COVID? Flu and cold symptoms will often be the same as COVID. Given these similarities, what is the threshold of being tested for COVID?
Thank you, Ms. Webb. We've actually had that question be asked a number of times, and unfortunately there is no set answer to that particular question. What we do hope for us is that we are always going to take the stance of an overabundance of caution. What we hope that individuals will do, if they are feeling sick, we want those individuals to stay home this year. We've had a number of situations early on in the school year in which individuals were having some symptoms and they were not feeling well, and they came to school. We later found out that those individuals tested positive, and we had to quarantine a number of students because of that. So what we're asking individuals to do this year, if you are sick, then stay at home. If you are presenting any of the signs of the COVID virus, then we would ask you to stay home until you were tested. So there's not any particular set of symptoms that we're looking for. But clearly, if you do have that elevated temperature, if you have that cough, if you have that difficulty breathing, and then if you lose the sense of taste or smell, then certainly those are some of the classic signs of the virus, and we would want you to stay home in that particular situation. So the thing that we are saying, when in doubt, stay out. Don't come to school if you are sick. And we also are asking individuals, don't come to school if a member of your immediate household has been tested for virus and then they are waiting results. Please do not come to school if you have a family member, whether that's a mother or a father or a sibling, being tested. Wait until you see the results of that test before you come back to school. You can contact the school and let your principal know what you're doing, and we will work out the details of that. Almost everybody can go to class online, so attendance should not be an issue, but we do want to make sure that individuals who are sick stay home. So Ms. Webb, the next question.
How will the schools handle attendance if a virtual student is unable to attend because our home internet is not functioning properly? We have internet, but our current provider has experienced some problems maintaining reliable service.
This is another common question that we have had. Students are participating online, and so far we have been able, our infrastructure has been reliable. Everything that we have done has been able to push the message out, and we've been able to receive the messages in. However, some of our local vendors, I'm not really sure that they've had the experience of working with this kind of volume before, and they've had some trouble working out some of the problems associated with such a heavy load on their infrastructure. And this has happened that some of the network providers have crashed and students have lost connectivity. When this happens, that is okay. We want students to be able to understand that this is a common problem and that try to reconnect. But if something happens that your internet provider is unable to provide you that service, then certainly you can't be held accountable for that. So what we're asking individuals to do is simply communicate with your teacher, communicate with your principal, and let those individuals know that your internet has went down, and then we will take that into consideration as we do attendance. Now, we would certainly hate that you lost connectivity 40 days in a school year, but as long as it is a small number of times that you lose connectivity, we understand that that could be a problem and that could be an issue. Again, we do have some hot spots at school, so if your internet connectivity is very unreliable, then it may be a good idea to contact us and we would help you with a more reliable internet package. But even when we have had shortages or we've had outages with internet providers here in Hamilton County, it has not been for an extended period of time and individuals have been able to get back online. So at this point, we will take that into consideration and we will not hold that against you if you've simply lost internet connectivity and you can't attend school. Next question.
What is the school's policy on wearing masks at all times? In many businesses, employees can remove their mask when working at their own desk and not directly interacting with other individuals. Could students take off their mask when they are at their desk and not interacting with other students or the teacher? Could they simply put on their mask when approached by a teacher or another student?
This is another common question that we get, and I think it's a daily conversation with students and parents. Currently, our policy is that students should be wearing a mask all the time that they're in school. There are a few situations in which a teacher could excuse the wearing of a mask. For example, if we're in PE and the area is open and there's plenty of space for students to go, that would be a time where not wearing a mask may be appropriate. There also may be times where we might be in a welding class or we might be in another particular class and where students are spread out and the wearing of a helmet is already there. And so there's some times where it would be appropriate, but all other times we are asking students to wear a mask. We know this is a major inconvenience. We know that this is a problem for many students. It's actually a big problem for us also. We know that the masks are sometimes hot, they're uncomfortable, they're hard to talk through, and it's just a major inconvenience. However, we're very concerned that if we don't accept this inconvenience right now, it might be even more inconvenient that if we had to close school because we had massive infection rates. So I know that in some businesses we are able to spread out, and even in some of our offices where individuals go in their own room and they work, it is allowable to take your mask off if you're in your individual office. Unfortunately for most of our students, however, they're not in an office, they're in a classroom. And in many of those classrooms, we've tried to maintain that 6-foot distance, but it's just simply not possible in some of our classrooms. And so wearing the mask while you're in class is a necessity. Now, again, it's a situation where if teachers do have small numbers, they can get that degree of separation that they need to provide that safety. Students would be able to take their mask off potentially, but it would be at the teacher's discretion. So for right now, we do want students wearing the mask at all times when they are interacting with other students, when they're in the hallways, when they're in the classroom. And we have said this multiple times. This will not last forever. In the near future, we will have a situation where we feel that it is safe enough to lift the mask mandate, but for right now, we ask everyone to wear the mask. And we do hope that individuals remember, wearing the mask is not for your protection. It is for the protection of other individuals around you. And if we can keep those around us safe, we can keep schools open. So for now, we need everybody to wear their mask as soon as they get in the building and throughout the school day. Ms. Webb?
I do not agree with the mask mandate. There are some agencies that state wearing a mask is not healthy for students. What source of information is the school district using for this mandate? When will the mask mandate be lifted?
There are some agencies out there who would advocate that the wearing of a mask is not healthy for students. However, the most legitimate sources such as the CDC and the Tennessee Department of Health have all advocated that the wearing of masks is essential to the safety and well-being of every student. I think that it's important, and someone once said this, that if we were to all act as if we were infected and treat ourselves as we were infected each day, then we could stop the virus very quickly because we would wear masks. We would maintain the 6-foot separation. We would not be in close contact with individuals throughout the day. We would make sure that we kept ourselves away from other individuals. The mask will help us stop the spread of the virus. It'll keep our teachers healthy. It'll keep fellow classmates healthy. And so right now, the main source of information that we are looking at is information for the CDC, and it's from the Tennessee Department of Health and our local health department. I think that we have a very quality person leading our health department here in Hamilton County. We stay in close contact with Ms. Sherry Montgomery often, and she provides us with a great amount of information to help guide our decisions. And so from this point, we're looking at those 3 organizations for the source of our information, and we will lift the mask mandate as soon as we feel that there is a safe way to do so. We don't see that in the next couple weeks, but we don't think that it will be around for the next several months either. So there will be a time where we will be able to take the mask off, but for right now, we ask your patience in this so that we can keep everyone healthy and safe. Next question.
I would be very concerned if the school system no longer requires the wearing of masks in school. Would parents have the option of choosing virtual instruction if the mask mandate was eliminated?
And I think you see a little bit of the conflict that we have here. There are a number of people in our county who feel that the mask mandate is not necessary, and they are adamantly against it. However, there's another side of that particular viewpoint which argues that the masks are critical and essential to the safety and well-being of everyone. And we get both of those sides communicated to us almost daily. And so in this particular one, the individual is asking if they could go virtual if we were to lift the mask mandate. First of all, we're not going to lift the mask mandate until we are sure that everybody would be safe. We have a number of staff members who are currently teaching in class, and those individuals have a number of health conditions that require that we keep them safe. Having students and other staff members wear the mask are part of the way that we can keep those individuals safe. So we don't see lifting the mask mandate in any time in the near future. However, if we were to do that in any time, actually, that a parent feels uncomfortable or feels that it is an unsafe condition, then those individuals can always go virtual. Now, it's important to note that you can't go the other way, that you can't go from virtual back to in-person until the end of the grading period. But at any time during the school year, parents are able to elect to go online if they feel the need to do so. Ms. Webb.
I have a concern the digital thermometers may not be entirely accurate and may register an elevated temperature due to a variety of factors. Several parents bring their children to school in the morning, and they will have car heaters turned up and students will be wearing head coverings. This may cause some students to have a heater head and register a higher temperature. This temperature will normally go down after a few seconds outside the car or without a head covering, but it may cause a slowdown on the drop-offs, which are already congested. Are there any plans to accommodate this potential issue and to allow traffic to flow more effectively in the mornings?
You know, as we travel through this journey with the virus, it is exciting to see some of the new words that actually pop up. And we've actually heard the term heater head multiple times as we go through this conversation. And it actually does occur. We do have students that would come into school with head coverings, and we anticipate that this will be more prevalent as we go through the months into the winter months. And I've actually taken the temperatures before, and if a student was outside in the heat for an extended period of time, or if they are coming from a car in which is extremely hot, we will get a reading on a thermometer that may not be accurate. And normally what we've done in that situation is we ask those individuals to sit down for a little bit to cool down some and then remove their head covering, and we take the temperature again to get a more accurate reading. And this does happen, and we understand that. The issue that this particular person wrote in about, however, is a legitimate one. It is a lot easier to do that if the student is already out of the car and they're within the building, or if they're at a game. It does create a number of problems for us when individuals are in a car line, because we've had an increased number of individuals who are bringing their students or their children to school this year, and this has created a great amount of congestion and traffic problems at our schools. If parents have to wait until their child has an accurate reading, it could slow those particular lines down. What we ask parents to do, if you have that particular situation, it is our hope that you're able to pull out of line and go to one of the areas where you could be out of the main entry area, and then let your child recover there just a little bit, and then we'll take the temperature and try to get them in quickly. But we do want individuals to be able to move through the line quickly. So something that would help in that situation, if your child is wearing a hat, if they're wearing some kind of head cover, it may be a good situation to have them to remove that right before they get out of the car, right before they have their temperature taken. Also, it may be a good idea, if this is a consistent problem for you, to turn down the heat in the vehicle just a little bit right before you get to the area where your temperature is going to be tested, so that we can effectively deal with that and get the traffic moving efficiently. But again, if you can't do any of those things and you do have that particular situation, we're hoping there's an area that you can pull off to. And normally there is a side exit that individuals can go to, or you can go to the parking lot to just allow traffic to continue going without slowing down the whole line. Ms. Webb?
What is the estimated daily time on task that is expected of elementary students involved in virtual learning? How is this expectation being communicated to teachers involved in online instruction? How are teachers instructed by the district to estimate this time on task?
We have been doing in-class instruction for over 200 years. We kind of know how to do that. It's a situation in which we are relatively effective in providing that in-class instruction. We've been doing virtual instruction for a couple weeks at this particular level. So it is a little bit, we found that it's a little bit difficult to establish those balances of an effective workload for students. There is no set timeline or no minimum or maximum time that a student should be engaged in online instruction. However, we have given our teachers a couple guidelines. First, the state has mandated that each student that is involved in online instruction should be receiving at least 6.5 hours of either direct instruction or guided practice. Now, this 6.5 hours does not mean that a second grade child should be sitting in front of the computer for 6.5 hours straight. That is not what the regulations mean, and that's not what we're expecting out of our teachers. However, if that particular child was in school, they would have 6.5 hours of instruction, or at least 6.5 hours in school with us. Now, we know that there would be some specialty area time. There would also be some recess time. There would be some time for lunch, and so it wouldn't be the total 6.5 hours. We had a conversation with our virtual teachers, and part of that conversation involved having a more balanced workload. Because actually we have heard from a number of parents, some are saying that the virtual instruction is much too hard, it requires much too work, and we've had other complaints that the coursework is not rigorous enough, that it's not hard enough, that it's too easy. And so we're working with our teachers to try to balance that workload and make sure that students actually receive the instruction they need to master those essential skills necessary for that particular grade level, while still understanding that there needs to be family time, that there needs to be some time for play, and there needs to be some time to simply be a child. So we are communicating to our virtual teachers. We had a conversation with them the week before. We had another conversation last week, and we have another conversation planned this week. And so we'll continue to work on that particular area so that we have a more balanced and equitable workload for our students. We ask for your patience, and we also would ask that you continue to communicate your concerns to your classroom teacher and also to your principal. And you can always email us here at the central office if you need to do so, and we will be happy to respond to you directly. But we are working on this. We're in our third week now, and we think that we've already worked out a lot of the issues, but clearly there are still some issues to be worked out. Now, one of the common problems that we run into, however, and I'm not real sure how we fix this particular problem, but a parent is forced to work all day and their student has no internet access, or the child care provider that they have cannot allow them to enroll in the online instruction. So the problem that these parents are having is when they get home from work after a tough day at work, they've got to spend that 2 or 3, 4 hours with their child doing work that many other children did during the day. This is a tough one. We understand that parents have to work. You've got to put food on the table, and you've got to provide money for electricity. We understand that parents have to do that. At the same point in time, we've got to make sure that students are able to learn. And so that's not a relatively easy process. That will take a lot of interaction between the parent, the child, and the teacher when we're doing this virtually. So we will continue to work on the balancing the workload and making sure that what students need to receive in terms of an education, they are receiving it, but that we don't overload them with all the weight and burden of online instruction. Ms. Webb.
What guidelines have been communicated to teachers regarding designing curriculum for online learners?
With the curriculum part, that is a relatively simple answer in one way, but it's very difficult to implement. The answer to that is we all follow the same curriculum. So regardless if you're on online instruction or if you're actually coming to class in person, the curriculum that we follow are the standards established by the state of Tennessee. Those standards are communicated to each teacher. There's essential learnings that are required in each one of those standards. And we have worked with our teachers about understanding what that curriculum is, how that curriculum is to be taught, and how it will be assessed. And so, for example, at the end of this first grading period, all students will take the same benchmark assessments. And with that benchmark assessment, they will need to have the same curriculum being taught. So for us, we use the standards presented by the Department of Education, and each teacher has a copy of those. So we follow the blueprints, we follow the standards, and we teach what's in the Tennessee standards. Ms. Webb.
Many of us are required to work every day, and we have few options for childcare if school is not in session, or if our students are sent home because they were in close contact with another student. Please understand that many of us will experience issues if our children cannot attend school for whatever reason. What efforts are you taking to keep school open and to limit the number of students who are forced to quarantine?
I think that it's really important to understand that we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but there it's cleared up. In that particular part, it is the purpose of the Hamlin County Board of Education, and it is also the purpose or the intent of the Office of the Superintendent to ensure that we keep in school as often as we can. I think for us, we started this school year with the intent to finish this school year in person. And so we're taking specific precautions to make sure that we can do that. Now, unfortunately, some of the precautions that we are taking to ensure that we can stay in school will also result in the quarantine of certain students and the social isolation that is occurring with that. So with that, what I mean is that sometimes we have to send certain students home because they have potentially been infected. And while we hate to send any student home, we think that it's critical and that it's important that we do that, because if we don't send it home, if we don't send that child home, then it's going to be a situation where that particular child will infect others, it will infect our teachers, it will have an impact on our staff, and then we will not have the ability to remain in school. So we are doing certain things such as wearing a mask, we're taking the temperatures daily, and then we're also attempting to make sure that if we have a potentially sick or potentially infected student, that those individuals are being sent home early so that their impact on the rest of the student body will be minimum. So again, we know that parents are extremely frustrated when we have to send students home. We know that in some of those situations, it is a major inconvenience for parents, but we hope that the short duration that students would have to stay out is going to be beneficial for us in the long run so that we can keep school open the entire year. Ms. Webb.
I have a child with special needs, and she has an IEP. I am concerned her academic and social needs will not be met if she were unable to attend school. It is my understanding the school system received state and federal money to specifically help students with identified needs. Would there be any concessions made for SPED students if the school system shuts down and all students were forced to attend school virtually?
It is true that we did receive some state and federal money for a wide range of service, not only for special ed students, but for a wide range of services within the county, and to also make sure that employees were paid. So we do have some of that money, and we are using that money to help out specifically with some special ed students and students with identified needs. We are prepared, and we've worked with our special ed department to make sure that if we were to go out of school for any reason, or that a student with identified needs had to be quarantined, that the continuation of services would be maintained. Now, we do want to make it clear that there is no way that we could provide virtual services as effectively as we could in person. Certainly, some of these students have a number of academic problems, and along with those academic problems, there are sometimes some social issues that are best dealt with when we're in school. We actually have people who are trained and certified to work with those students one-on-one. And in many of those cases, that interactive ability of that teacher to establish those connections with that child is the most effective way that we can produce the desired results. However, if we do have to go out of school and we go virtually, We do have some things set up with our speech teachers, with our occupational therapist, with our physical therapist. So we do have plans in place, and it will look different for each particular child. But regardless, that child would have an IEP, and within that IEP, that is a legal binding document, and we have to provide those services, and we're prepared to do so. It may look a little different, and just recently we had a student that had to be quarantined, and that particular child received some physical therapy. Since we really couldn't go to the house to do physical therapy because they were potentially infected, we actually had the physical therapist working with the parent and having the parent manipulate the particular child so that that individual would receive similar services as they would if they were in school. So we're doing the very best that we can. It's never as good as having those particular students in school, but we will continue to provide special ed services to students if we have to go virtually. Ms. Webb.
There is a rumor that the school is waiting until fall break to shut down school and have all students attend virtually for the remainder of the semester. Does the school system have any plans to shut down school in the future?
As we stated in an earlier question, it is the intent of the Board of Education and the intent of the office superintendent to maintain school all year long in person. We will always provide that option for online instruction if parents feel unsafe, but it is our intent to keep school open. We have not discussed any plans to shut down school at a prescribed date. We don't have any plans to arbitrarily shut down school at any point during the school year. It is our intent to keep school open as long as we possibly can. Ms. Webb.
At some point, the Board of Education may be forced to shut down a school or the district because of COVID. What criteria will the district use for shutting down a school or the district?
We have received this question again from a number of parents and a number of staff members. When is going to be the tipping point? So how many students do we have to send home? How many staff members would we have to send home before we would have to shut down school? And unfortunately, there is no set prescribed answer to that question. I think that a lot of individuals would want to know, if we had 5% of the students out, what would we do? If we lost 5% of the teachers, what would we do? And we are looking at that on an individual basis. But now it could very well be a possibility this year that we were to close particular schools and keep the rest of the district open. Right now, we actually have a number of schools in the county that's not had their first case of COVID within that school among staff members or among students. So it would make very little sense to close one of those schools down when there's been no confirmed cases at all. So we will try to keep the schools open as long as we can. But the thing that we will do, and this is going to be it's not necessarily a quantifiable number, but the standard that we're looking at, if we feel that we can keep schools open safely, and if we have the appropriate staff members to keep that school open, then we will continue to keep school open. However, if we ever feel that the virus has become rampant in a particular school, in a particular community, we would shut school down for that. Also, we would shut down school if we no longer had enough staff members to staff that particular school. Now, we have repurposed a lot of our staff members. We actually have central office personnel that's actually teaching right now. We have central office personnel who are substituting, and we have changed a couple of our other positions, such as our alternative school, to have those individuals to help staff some of the school so that we can keep school open. Our two primary focuses this year will be, first of all, making sure that staff and students are safe. Our second focus that we are looking toward is making sure that we can keep school open. And if we can do so, then we can work on academics, we can work on the social pieces, we can provide that extracurricular activity and some of those experiences. But at the very beginning, we have to have it safe, and we've got to keep school open. Ms. Webb.
I have heard that students should be quarantined for 10, 14, or 24 days, depending on the situation. This is extremely confusing and frustrating. What is the actual number of days that a student will be quarantined if they are exposed?
This is another one of those questions in which we have debated, questioned, talked about, and had multiple conversations with the Tennessee Department of Health and our local health department and some of the medical providers. Unfortunately, there is no set situation because every one of these situations is very different. However, what we will do is that when the school nurse will contact you, the school nurse will specifically tell you how many days that you're supposed to be out. They then will refer you to the Department of Health, and they will do a more in-depth investigation of your particular situation. Our recommendation to you is a recommendation, and it's an estimate. The health department, after doing the necessary investigation, will tell you how many days that you need to stay out of school and to be isolated at home. In many situations, if you test positive, you would be out for 10 days. If you are a close contact with someone and you had contact with an individual who has tested positive, you could be out for 14 days. The 24 days come into play when a close family member has tested positive and you are not yet, you've not yet tested positive. You could be out for an extended period of time given that situation, because what happens in that 24 period is that there could be an incubation period, so you would have to wait the 14 days for that incubation period, and then you could have to wait that 10 days beyond that point after you tested positive. So the most important thing to remember is that once you are tested and you are sent home or quarantined, we will provide you with a specific number of days that you're to be out. And normally that does come in the 10-day time period if you are testing positive, the 14-day time period if you're in contact, and then the 24-day period if you are in close contact with a family member that has been exposed or has been testing positive. Ms. Webb.
My child was sent home for 14 days because he had been sitting close to another student who had tested positive. Both students were wearing a mask. Why was my child forced to go home and be quarantined for 14 days if they were wearing a mask?
This is a common frustration that we have from some of our parents. We've had to quarantine over 100 students. And in some of those situations, we'll be extremely open and transparent. Some of those students may have been questionable if we needed to send home or not, but through an abundance of caution, we are sending students home, because if we fail to do that, then we could end up having a mass epidemic in our school, and we could have a number of students infected. And so if there's that possibility, we're going to send that particular child home. Now, I know the question comes up that if they were wearing a mask, then are they not safe? And a mask is not 100% successful. We do feel from some of the research that it is relatively effective and it will stop a lot of the droplets from escaping, but that is not going to be the case the entire time. And so there are some situations in which we're able to separate students out a great deal in the classroom, and we have more than that 6 feet or that distance. And then there's also some times where we're not able to provide that kind of distance every time during the day. So there are going to be times, even though your child is wearing a mask, that we will still have to send them home. And again, we simply ask for your patience and understanding with this. We know that it's inconvenient. We know that it's difficult to find child care, but it would also be even more difficult to find child care if we had to shut down the school for an extended period of time. Ms. Webb.
We sincerely appreciate the opportunity for our children to participate in sports this year. However, we would like to see more people allowed into the stadiums to watch the games. Does the district have a plan to increase the number of people allowed into football games? What is the district's plans for winter sports?
We have been increasing the number of tickets that we sell at football games. We've not had really as much of a problem with some of our other fall sports simply because we didn't attract a large number of crowds that we would normally have in a football game. But we have been increasing the number of tickets. And the way that we can increase even more tickets being provided is to make sure that people do socially distance, that individuals wear masks, and that individuals follow all the guidelines and regulations to keep people safe. And we do require a mask to get in, and everybody does wear a mask when they come in. They also have their temperature taken. However, in some of the games that we've seen, of course, once you get into the stands, then the mask appears to be optional to some degree, and this is not the case. We need everyone wearing their mask, again, and it is not for your protection. It is for the protection of others around you. So as long as we are comfortable feeling that we can have games safely, we will increase the number of visitors that we have into our stadium. And we also want everyone to know that our primary focus for having fall sports is not to necessarily let a large number of people into the stadium. It's not to make an incredibly amount of money this year. Our primary purpose in having fall sports this year is to simply let those players play on the field. We want those individuals to have some of those experiences that are rich and that mean a great deal to some of these individuals, regardless if you're playing football, soccer, golf, tennis, volleyball, basketball, whatever it would be. Our primary focus is to give students that opportunity to participate. Having individuals visit us and having individuals sit in the stands is a secondary piece. Now, clearly, we want parents and grandparents to be able to see this, and so at our football games especially, we're able to live stream those particular events, and we want to thank Mr. Landefeld and Mr. Azell for providing that, and then actually Mr. Azell's class has helped out a great deal with that, and they've live streamed those games to give parents and community members the opportunity to see those games. So right now, we are increasing the numbers. We'll continue to increase the numbers if we feel that individuals are following the safety protocols and that we can continue to increase those numbers. Also, for the winter sports, we will have some issues, of course, with our gyms. Our gym at East is a little bit larger than the one at West, and so certainly that will have an impact on the number of visitors that we can have into each one of those gyms. But at this time, we do intend to have spectators. We do intend to have fall sports. However, we will have to limit the number of spectators into the gyms so that we do not get things crowded up and that we don't have so many people sitting close together. One thing that we would ask the community to do is that you could help us by spreading out in the gyms and by spreading out into the football stadiums. Now, I know the best seats are normally associated with midfield around the 50-yard line, but we need to get individuals to spread out through the entire bleachers so that we can maintain that social distancing and we can get more individuals in the bleachers. So help us to help you, help us to increase the number of individuals at our game by all of us working together to ensure that we're keeping everybody safe in the stands. Ms. Webb.
I have heard that some children are sent home if they have a brother or sister who was in contact with another student who tested positive. I have also heard that other students in the same situation have been allowed to stay at school. What is the policy of sending children to school if they had a brother or sister sent home because those children were considered to be a close contact? What is the policy of sending children to school if someone in the house is sick or has tested positive?
This has been one of the more complicated issues that we have had to explain. So it's real clear if you are in close contact. So if Johnny was sitting beside Rob and Rob tested positive and they were within that distance and had that contact, then we would certainly have to send that child home. However, if Johnny has a brother that's at another school and a sister at another school, those individuals would not have to be quarantined because they would be a contact of a contact. We don't know that Johnny is positive yet. We just had to send him home because he was potentially infected. Now, clearly, if any of your siblings have any kind of symptoms whatsoever, if they have the temperature, if they have the cough, if they have the difficulty of breathing, if they lose that sense of taste or smell, then quarantine those particular individuals and get them tested. However, right now what we are doing, if your particular child was sitting beside of someone who has tested positive, we're sending that individual home. However, the brothers and sisters may not have to be sent home if they were not in that class, but they were simply a member of the household. Now again, we would ask parents to do the observant kind of thing and the smart kind of thing by paying a little bit closer attention to your child and making sure that they are symptom-free. And clearly, if your child that has been sent home, if that individual appears to have any symptoms at all, or if that individual you feel like they need to be tested, then if you're doing that, what we're asking, even though the health department is not necessarily recommending this, we're asking you that if any member of the family is sick enough or they have enough concern that they need to be tested, we are asking all of those individuals to stay home within that family till you get your test results back. Because if you're sick enough to be tested, there could be a probability that you are infectious and that we do not want you sending your children to school if there's that remote chance that they are sick. So please keep them home. But as the guidelines state from CDC and the Department of Health, if you are not that direct contact of someone impacted, you still can come to school. Okay. Ms. Webb.
Last question. When can students make a decision to change back to in-person instruction?
And at this point in time, as we've said before, if you are currently doing in-class instruction, you can go virtual anytime that you want to go. If you feel that the health conditions are unsafe or you just had some trouble with some of the inline or some of the in-class instruction, you can always go virtual. However, we have stated that you cannot go to the in-class from virtual until the end of the grading period. Now, we did provide a 2-week window that individuals could try out the online instruction and see if it worked for them. But right now, individuals have to wait until the end of the 9-week grading period before they can come back into actual class. However, the thing that we will do, there are some individuals, and we just heard about one today who seemed to be struggling a great deal with the online instruction. They also realized that they had missed the window. We encourage those individuals to call the principal and see if it is possible to come back to in class. Now, we want to make it real clear. We are not promising that because some of these classes that we currently have are very full and they cannot accommodate another student. We do have certain numbers that we have to maintain, but we also understand there could be a situation in which a virtual student might need to go back to an in-class, in-person class. If the principal is accommodating, if it is a situation in which the numbers work out, we will certainly be willing to have that conversation and do all that we can to help. But that conversation would be an individual principal decision because each classroom is different each classroom has different numbers in it, and each classroom can accommodate different students. We hope that there will be other questions as we go through this school year. It's our understanding that this, more so than any other school year, will be very different. And we have to be very flexible, we have to be very understanding, and we have to be very accommodating as we serve the needs of our community. We've said this multiple times. We exist as a school system to serve the individual children and parents of this community. It is our job to provide an instructional program and to provide a curriculum and those other experiences that will make your child a well-rounded individual. We take this job very seriously, and we're going to do everything that we can to make this a successful school year, even in spite of all the things that we are currently encountering. We hope that it is a good school year for you. We hope that it is a satisfying one, but we will also judge the effectiveness of this virtual community forum. We'll determine if there was a number of people who view it both live and then also as a recorded event. So we hope that it has been successful. We hope that it has answered some of the questions that you have. And what we encourage you to do in the future, if you do have some questions, then if you will continue to email those questions to Ms. Carlene Webb here at the central office, we will answer those questions individually. But we've also found out if you have a question, probably other people in the community have that same question, and we would rather answer it one time and get that information out to the community as opposed to multiple times. So again, we hope that you and your family remain safe. We appreciate your understanding and patience through this process as we try to get through this school year. And please know that we're doing everything possible to keep our staff members and your child safe and still provide a curriculum and an instructional program that will help them be successful. We certainly do appreciate your attention to this broadcast, and we will get better. We know that tonight was not perfect, and trying to answer questions and trying to respond in a live format, I've grown a better appreciation for those individuals who do this live on a daily basis. So we will get better with this, and don't judge the first broadcast as not being perfect, because we will get better. But we do appreciate your attention. We wish you the best. Stay healthy, Hamlin County, and we hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you.